So I want to talk about this Kamala ran and the Marxist overthrow. And I can't tell you, I know that you may be thinking, haven't we talked about this before? Yeah, I mean, kind of, but kind of not. I'm going to mention some things to you that occurred over the weekend that relate to all of this. One is that there is you all know, because we talked about it, there's a communist party in this country. It's been around forever. I mean, since 1920s or something. And the communist movement's been in America for decades. They've been working their way into the American political culture, working their way into academia, spreading the evil of communism, which has, by the way, never worked well anywhere. No one ever tried to fight their way into a communist country because they couldn't stand all the freedom in America, or they couldn't stand the freedom here, and they couldn't wait to go live in Cuba, Venezuela, North Korea, or China. These things don't happen. Everyone, the natural human instinct is to fight against the repression of communism, and yet we have a communist movement growing in America. There is a guy who is the leader of the communist movement that is actually called the Revolutionary Communist Party of the United States, this Bob Avakian. And he has a statement out this past weekend related to all of the violence we are watching in this country. He knows exactly what I am telling you. He sees this unrest. He sees these riots. He sees these instances. And obviously, some of the instances in which people get upset with the police were justified. I mean, the idea what happened with George Floyd in Minneapolis in May, late May, that was, clearly unjustified. And I know all of the theories about whether it was a big setup. We're not going to go there. But what everyone saw on national television with the officer pinning George Floyd's neck under his knee and George Floyd dying later that day, these are things that are righteously upset about. But back to the Communist Party, the Revolutionary Communist Party of the United States. Bob Avakian puts out this statement. To all those who have risen up so powerfully and demonstrating to say no more after the murder of George Floyd. And then he goes on to say, we need revolution, nothing less. A strategic plan for how to make this a revolution, a sweeping vision, concrete blueprint for a radically different and better world. He has written the Constitution for the new socialist republic in North America. That's what he wants America's future to be. And I'm telling you, people, you got to look around and recognize, because in this massive unrest we have in our country, you have the Bob Avakians, the Revolutionary Communist Party of the United States. You have the academic, communist, Marxist, socialist thought leaders. All these types have been working toward this moment for decades, but they think we're here. They think we've arrived. They think they are on the cusp of turning America away from being a country rooted in freedom into a country rooted and squelched and crushed by the evils of communism. They think we're here. They think the Democrat ticket is their way to get there. So understand, there are the leaders of the movement, the Avakians, the kind of thought leaders of communism and Marxism, and there are masses and millions of useful idiots who think they are justified, think what they're doing is standing up for justice or standing up for whatever it is they would say, standing against the evil of what happened to George Floyd, and it was evil. But those people are now in the millions in this country. It's not like we have a tiny little, minuscule 0.000.2% people who are communist Marxists. We have a growing movement in this country. And they are motivated because they are ignorant. They don't know any better. They think what they're fighting for is justice, and they're fighting to crush the entire country, the beauty of America, the greatness of America, crush it and turn it into a communist Marxist country. That is the mission. And I will tell you, among many reasons you should know this is when you look at these marches around the country and the riots and the protests and the burning of buildings and burning down cities, you rarely, if ever, see a list of demands. You don't see demands that say, we're rioting because we want to have changes in federal law relating to, sentencing, or we want to end the police department's use ever of certain tactics to arrest people, or we want to. There aren't demands that you could. This is what you would do if it was a real protest in the context of preserving America. You'd make demands, you might have a march, you have negotiations, you try to run people for office who will implement what you believe in. That's what you do when you're trying to hold on to America. These people are trying to end America. The leaders at the top know exactly what they're doing. The useful idiot masses joining in this, many of them paid, but, and so they'll, rent a protest, or they'll go protest anything. And many of them ignorantly thinking they're standing up for justice. And somehow, if we just burn one more building down, all of a sudden we'll have utopia America. They have no idea what they're doing, because they're sadly the product of an education system that didn't teach them anything about what they're actually standing up for. So in Kenosha, by the way, President Trump is going to head there. And I think the mayor of Kenosha and perhaps the governor of Wisconsin both said, no thanks, we don't want you to come. He's coming anyway, as he should. I will tell you, by the way, when I talk about this being being a movement, a compensated movement, an orchestrated, manipulated, this is not an organic protest. They had arrests in Kenosha over the weekend, 175 people arrested. Probably should have been more, but 175. 102 of them, 102 out of 175, do not live in Kenosha. These are shipped in rioters, shipped in, violators of liberty, violators of our peace. These are shipped in criminals who showed up in Kenosha. But I want to tell you that, in fact, on our website, AmericaCanWeTalk.org, you can read the longer screed that came out of this Revolutionary Communist Party, a long litany of how they're going to make America perfect and fair and blah, blah. I mean, the most ridiculous, standing up for the most evil, repressive ideology in human history and claiming they're here to help you. Don't worry, they're here to help you. So I want to hit a few quick stories. So Rand Paul had a hard time. We had that beautiful, beautiful RNC ceremony, Republican National Committee, the very ending of it, President Trump delivering his address at the White House. And then you had people, Senator Rand Paul of Kansas and his wife, walking back to their apartment 2 blocks away, or to their hotel 2 blocks away, assaulted by the mob. And Rand Paul, we had a clip for that. And actually, I don't know if Matt and I got our clips together here today. We do have that clip. Okay, so we have a clip of Rand Paul being surrounded and hassled. He has to be protected by the police from the mob as he is leaving the White House.
I know who that is. Say her name! Say her name! Say her name! Back up. This is fascism. This is what fascism looks like. You're not gonna say her name, man. Back up. You're not gonna say. You're not gonna say her name. Back up. You can't say Breonna's name, man. Come on now. Rand Paul won't even say her name.
Okay, people, I have to tell you, just to tell you how completely impossibly ignorant these people are. Breonna Taylor was a black woman who was killed by police. She was unarmed. It happened in Kentucky. And, I have not dived into the facts of that, so I'm making no commentary about whatever caused that shooting, whether it was justified or not. But the idiocy of yelling, say her name, Rand Paul introduced a bill in the Senate called the Breonna Taylor bill. He tried to say that at one point to one of the protesters. Actually, I have said her name. I introduced a bill called the Breonna Taylor, but they want none of it. This is, again, my point. These are not people trying to have an intelligent conversation. They don't have a mission. These are people fed and intentionally manipulated by the radical left in this country into perpetual, ignorant outrage. They don't even know what they're talking about. But he and his wife surrounded, they weren't harmed, but they were surrounded and had to be escorted by the police to protect them from this mob to get back to their hotel room. Also happening in Washington last week, you had, of course, because we had the end of the RNC convention happening in the White House grounds, you had these helicopters overhead, DC helicopters, trying to keep track of these lunatic mob that has been attacking people around this country. Again, this is not peaceful protest. This is not the kind of protest protected by the First Amendment. The First Amendment allows you to you can be in a relevant area. You can't be shipped off to out of town to do your protest. You can be in a relevant area. You can be where you're actually seen by the media, but you have to comply with the law. These people are simply trying to disrupt everything happening and deciding until they get their way, which who even knows what they would say their way is, they get to keep disrupting, destroying, yelling, screaming. And at this incident in Washington, the mob was throwing objects at the police. I mean, frozen hard water bottles, few bricks tossed. And this is not a peaceful protest. And then you had the DC police helicopter overhead, and one of them was hit by laser lights sent up by this Marxist mob in Washington, laser lights getting into the eyes of the helicopter pilot who had to make an emergency landing. One of the people on board that helicopter had to be treated at the hospital. I don't know if he's still in the hospital or not. And we had the same tactic used by the rioters in Portland, using laser lights to try to blind police officers. And allegedly there was one police officer permanently blinded in one eye. People, this is not peaceful protest. This is an orchestrated revolution unfolding before our eyes. Next story, Kamala Harris. Oh, by the way, back to Washington. One more thing about Washington. So you had all these people in Washington mob outside the White House, people actually trying to sit and listen to the president and others deliver their remarks at the White House. We had this very modified Republican convention this year because of COVID, which we'll get to next in the show today. But you had people trying to disrupt it, trying to storm the gates, and police did end up firing rubber bullets and tear gas into the crowd. And again, the radical left complains, that is so cruel. How could you use rubber bullets? It's like they're saying, we get to protest. We can protest all we want, and there's nothing you can do about it. You just have to let us protest. And we get closer, and we get to the point where we are a mob, and we're rioting, and we're threatening people, and people are alarmed. Rand Paul and his wife weren't the only ones. Others, too, had similar stories. And they're acting as though they're just shocked and outraged that the police finally say, you just can't do that. You can't do that in America. You're going to have to leave. And so they use rubber bullets and tear gas. So that happened in Washington. And so, I could go on just about what happened that night. But I want to hit two other things, all in this whole segment relating to how we are watching a Marxist revolution before our eyes. Next is Kamala Harris. She is now officially the Democrat candidate for vice president under Joe Biden, which means unless someone replaces Biden, either in reality or actually gets on the ballot somehow or gets in the White House, Kamala Harris will be the leader of the Democrat Party, because Joe Biden has no idea what's happening at all in life. So here we have Kamala Harris, what she said recently in a late night interview on Stephen Colbert.
Clear that I know that there are protests still happening in major cities across the United States. I'm just not seeing the reporting on it that I had
that's right.
for the first few weeks.
That's right. But they're not going to stop. They're not going to stop. And they're not. This is a movement. I'm telling you, they're not going to stop. And everyone beware, because they're not going to stop. They're not going to stop before Election Day in November, and they're not going to stop after Election Day. And that should be, everyone should take note of that on both levels, that they're not going to let up, and they should not. And we should not.
Okay. It would help if she would say, because we need to fight for changes in police policy. We need to fight for changes in the criminal justice system. We need to fight for what? What you just heard out of her is as close to a threat as a person could get. She's right with them. And I'll tell you, it's been kind of really interesting on this whole thing with Biden and Kamala Harris, because you look back how all these riots started. We had George Floyd in Minneapolis, killed by a police officer on May 25th of this year. So, a while ago. We are now the end of August. So it's May, June, July, August, over 3 months. You had, and you've heard zip, zero, nada, nothing out of any Democrat official. No Democrat at the national level will condemn any of the violence, any of the rioting, even when police officers are killed, even when police cars are burned, even when buildings are destroyed, even when cities are left looking like, Beirut. You hear nothing. Stone cold silence. They are okay with this. Or if you think they're not okay with this, Democrat officials in Washington cannot criticize anything that's attached to the name Black Lives Matter, even though Now, more Americans are awake to the reality that Black Lives Matter has nothing to do with Black lives. It's just a convenient use. And again, useful idiots being used by the Marxist movement in this country. They pick up a name, Black Lives Matter. They have statements from the founders. We are Marxists. We are trained Marxists. And you had on their website, the BLM website keeps honing down what they're saying, but they acknowledge very, very forthrightly, yeah, we're about, basically destroying the intact family units, destroying patriarchal society. They are Marxists. They are not trying to fix America within the confines of the free America that was created, the beauty of America created at our founding. They're trying to destroy it. But you can't get one Democrat official in Washington to criticize Black Lives Matter. Certainly can't get them to criticize Antifa, because the Democrats running in Washington, they need the Marxist vote. Please understand that. They need the Marxists to win. So Kamala Harris is not willing to say, we have to move forward with certain policy ideas. We have to engage in conversation. She's just saying they're going to keep rioting, and she has no apology in her tone, no apology at all, as this Marxist movement is marching forward in city after city after city. Now, I want to tell you one other thing that happened recently. You had Don Lemon, the CNN. He's a black racist. He is a host of CNN. And Don Lemon actually made this statement on August 25th, 26th, somewhere in there, over the weekend, saying basically, I think maybe the Democrat ticket needs to start to condemn this violence a little bit. Not because it's wrong, not because it's not moral, but, says Don Lemon, because it's starting to show up in the polls. Because pollsters are discovering, shock of shocks, America does not want to have riots continuing in our country. We're just not up for that. We want to have safety. We want to have peace. We want to have law and order. So Don Lemon says that. So finally, Joe Biden came out of his basement briefly to make the comment that he condemns this violence, and he calls on President Trump to condemn it too, which is so beyond idiotic. I mean, Trump has been denouncing the violence and continues to denounce it, and Biden trying to pretend he's somehow capable of taking the high road for the first time, late August, commenting on riots that started at the end of May. Over 3 months ago, we've been in riots consuming American cities. And Biden finally, in the last weekend of August, goes, maybe I'll say something about it. I'm against violence. So ridiculous. Their side is stuck because they have fomented this, they have legitimized it, and now they're in a position where it's very hard for them to say, but we really can't have this go on and on. The other thing I mentioned about Kamala Harris, which just ties into her carrying responsibility for what's occurring, she did a huge fundraising push, a donation push, to help people, to urge people to donate to the hashtag was @MN Freedom Fund, the Minnesota Freedom Fund. It is a fund to pay for bail so that people who are burning buildings, looting, rioting, mobbing cities are not held in jail, these people donate to the fund and then the bail lets them get out. 3 particular people, there's an article on our website, I can go into it right now, but you can go read it on our website, americacanwetalk.org, on the homepage, under shows, drop down list of links, 3 specific people you can tie to. Their bail was received, they got out of jail because of bail money paid by this, who turned out to be respectively murderers, murderers, a twice convicted rapist, now charged with kidnapping, assault, and sexual assault. In 2 more cases, her fundraising helped get these guys free. Seriously, she has no claim to this law and order position she says she's taking now. The last 2 things I want to hit in this segment on the show today, I want you to understand we're watching a Marxist revolution. I'm trying to run through examples. Another one has to do with what's happening in Portland. And in Portland, you likely know, there was a murder of an unarmed Trump supporter by the Antifa crowd. So first I want to ask Matthew Wonderful to play. This is a clip, the interview from the article we just found right before we came on air. This is the guy speaking who was walking with his friend, both unarmed, in Portland. They went there to stand up for Trump, and Antifa turned on him and murdered his friend he was walking with. Here you go.
It escalated to the point that they executed my partner. So they hunted him down. They hunted us down. They recognized our Patriot Prayer hats. For anybody who doesn't know Patriot Prayer, Joey Gibson, the Citizens Advocate, he's a good man. We support him. He's a Christian and conservative. So they identified our hats. We got a couple of them right here. We got a couple of them right here. Pull it out. Pull it out. And
is that what they said?
That's what they said. We turned around. It didn't even register that somebody was pointing a gun at us until the shots went off and took off running.
The shooter took off running.
The shooter took off running, and it takes a second for you to process everything that happened. Did he just shoot at me? Okay, I'm okay. Turn over, and Jay's dead. Because he believes something different than that. Jay's not a racist, he's not a xenophobe or whatever label, he's not an ist or an ism. He's an independent man. He's a good man. And he didn't do anything to earn a bullet in the chest.
If you could ask anything right now of Donald Trump, what would it be?
Send troops. Send troops.
Okay, people, I have to tell you, I know there are many people on the conservative side who are advising President Trump, don't send in troops, hold back. First of all, maybe this will settle down, which, clue, it'll never settle down until after the election. Never. This is orchestrated, paid, intentional, revolutionary conduct. It won't settle down. But then the second thing question people have is, will it somehow backfire on President Trump if he sends in troops, or then the left is able to point to him as to, now he's heading toward taking power in this country, or he's headed toward, becoming a dictator. He's sending in military troops against innocent people. It's a very hard question. I'm going to get to that whole assessment another day. But the point in sharing that with you today is to point out these people would shoot an unarmed guy walking on the street who wasn't taunting, he wasn't even talking to them, because they feel justified killing anyone who dares to disagree with them. And now I want to ask Matt the Wonderful play. There was a clip of the crowd scene, these Antifa people, Antifa BLM people, who shot and killed this guy in Washington, or one of them did, their reaction when they discovered they killed someone.
I just got word. The person who died was a Patriot person. He was a fucking Nazi. Our community held its own and took out the trash. I am not going to shed any tears over a Nazi die. And tonight, I just got word. The person who died was a Patriot person. He was a fucking Nazi. Our community held its own and took out the trash.
Okay, that's enough for her. That's enough for her. But you have to understand what she's saying. First of all, everyone who's conservative, these crazies call Nazis. They use the word Nazi, which is a whole other thing we're struggling with in this country. The overuse of the word Nazi, which the left uses for anyone who in the slightest supports President Trump. But this particular person is talking about the shooting of a person who wasn't doing anything to them. And she's characterizing shooting a person as taking out the trash. When I tell you, when I say useful idiot, it can seem like I'm saying, well, they're kind of simple-minded, but they are not. They're dangerous, they are funded, they're organized, they are revolutionary, and we are living in extraordinary times in this country, and it is vital that everyone understand, everyone see the picture of what we're facing, because it should help you. It should help a lot of people in this country who are saying, well, I'm Republican, but I don't think I like Trump too much. I'm thinking of voting Democrat this time. You have to understand, you're voting for Marxism. You're voting for the Marxist takeover of this country. It's nothing less. When Biden gets in, he doesn't even know what day it is. He's not going to be president. You have Kamala, who will then be in charge, who is advocating on behalf of the people who are burning our country to the ground. And just stop and think how crazy it is in this era where America elected a black president twice, literally millions and millions and millions of Americans, including millions of white Americans, voted for President Obama. We've had decades of improvement in our society. We have just, our country has made so much progress from the time Martin Luther King came around and gave his beautiful I Have a Dream speech. We've had laws passed that protect against discrimination. We have awareness in our society of racial sensitivities. We've had programs to help inner cities for decades. We have a president who's bringing opportunity zones to inner cities. We have a president who just featured at the RNC convention many Black Americans who have been blessed and helped by his administration, by what he's doing to lift the burden that has been on the Black community in America with too many Black Americans incarcerated. He's tried to help, tried to change things, tried to have changes made in our criminal justice system, the First Step Act, helping people transition out of prison back into our workforce, into our society. America's a good country full of good people. Not perfect, not every person is perfect, but a good and noble country filled with good people. This country does not deserve, this country is not guilty of being the evil racist place that these protesters, these rioters are claiming that it is. They are not rioting because of true evil in this country. They're rioting because they are extremely, they're funded, they're encouraged, they're manipulated into outrage, and they are rioting in a country, a place that makes no sense based on who we are as a country. And in this fall, when you have friends saying, well, I'm not sure I'm going to vote, be the one to speak up and say, you do understand that this leader, the one I mentioned earlier, Vakian, who's the leader of the Revolutionary Communist Party, has endorsed Biden. He's swell with Biden. He thinks Biden's a great idea. Kamala Harris, even better. Loves these people. I know that when you're a candidate, you aren't responsible for the viewpoints and opinions of every single person who votes for you or every single person who endorses you. But if the Biden-Harris team was not supportive of Marxism, was not supportive of communism, was not supportive of socialism, they would say in this case, you know what? We got this endorsement, but we, the Biden-Harris team, we're on the American playing field. We believe in the free market system. We believe in the freedoms in our Constitution. We believe in the founding freedoms of America. We reject the arguments of the radical left that are trying to destroy America. That's what you would say if you were Biden and Harris and you actually believed in America. They can't say it because they need the vote of the radical Marxist left. And if they get into the White House with the vote of the radical Marxist left, what do you think their policies will be? Do you think they'll stand up for free enterprise, entrepreneurship, individual freedoms, freedom of religion, freedom of speech? All of that would be gone if this Revolutionary Communist Party got their way, and Biden and Harris are skating toward the White House, or so they think. I think Trump's going to win, but they are running toward the White House, embracing and accepting the support of people who want to radically overthrow the very existence of a great and good America. That's where we are in 2020.